Hello, survivors. Thank you for taking the time to listen to the story. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to our channel. We appreciate it, and thank you in advance. Please leave the name of the city you're listening from in the comment section below. It helps us see our reach in the community. Let's start the story. The rain hammered against my tactical helmet, cascading down my visor in sheets that distorted the world into a nightmare of twisted shadows. Lightning cracked overhead, illuminating the road ahead for a blinding instant before plunging us back into darkness. Our convoy of 3 armored Humvees crawled through the storm, wipers fighting a losing battle against the downpour. 2 miles to the reactor perimeter, Major Gabriel Stone called from behind the wheel, his voice tight with the strain of maintaining control on the flooded road. I checked my watch. 2100 hours. 9 hours since the first infection case had been identified in Oakdale. 9 hours since our special containment division had been mobilized. 9 hours that had changed everything. Team check, I ordered into my comm. As Lieutenant Deacon Frost, squad leader for this operation, I needed to know everyone was still mission ready. Rhodes, green. The voice of our demolitions expert crackled through my earpiece. Sullivan, green, our medic. Foster, green, our communications specialist. Shaw, green, our engineer. And finally, Morrison, green, but scared shitless. A nervous laugh from our civilian specialist, the nuclear technician we'd found hiding in a maintenance closet at the elementary school, the only survivor from the reactor staff. Copy all, I responded, then turned to Major Russell. Major, what's your read on the storm? Is it affecting our timeline? Russell's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. Flooding's worse than expected, Lieutenant Parker. Might slow our extraction. The creek near the access road was already rising when we left. I nodded, trying to ignore the knot in my stomach. 12 hours. That's what Morrison had told us. 12 hours until critical systems failed and the reactor went into meltdown. We'd already used up 9 of them, establishing the containment zone at the school. Lightning flashed again, illuminating the chain-link fence that marked the outer perimeter of Oakdale Nuclear Power Plant. In that instant, I saw them. 5 or 6 figures pressed against the fence. Their clothes hung in tatters, skin glistening wet in the storm. One was missing an arm, the ragged stump still oozing dark fluid that the rain washed away in rivulets. Even through the hammering downpour, I could hear their guttural moans. Infected at the gate, I warned, raising my M4 carbine. Remember protocol, headshots only. The memory of our first encounter flashed through my mind, how we'd arrived in Oakdale just after noon, responding to reports of violent incidents at the local hospital. The official briefing had been vague. A potential bioweapon release, aggressive behavior, possible contamination. Nothing had prepared us for what we found. 12 hours earlier, Lieutenant Parker, establish a perimeter around the elementary school, Colonel Hayes had ordered as our helicopters touched down on the football field. It's the only structure large enough to serve as a containment facility. I'd led my team through the school's empty hallways, the walls decorated with children's artwork, construction paper pumpkins and hand-traced turkeys. Fall colors, innocent. The school had been evacuated that morning when the first reports came in. The gymnasium became our command center, the cafeteria our triage area. Shaw rigged the generators while Rhodes secured the perimeter, setting up barriers and checkpoints. Foster established communications with headquarters, and Sullivan prepared the medical station. By 1400 hours, we had our first arrivals. Local police escorting families, elderly residents, anyone they could find who wasn't showing symptoms. Fear made their eyes wide, their movements jerky. We processed them efficiently, checking for bites or scratches, separating the potentially exposed from the uninfected. Sheriff Frank Sawyer was a bear of a man with a salt and pepper beard and bloodshot eyes. He'd been on duty for 20 hours straight. It's spreading house to house, he told me, his voice hoarse. Started at the hospital. Patient came in last night with a high fever, bit a nurse. Within an hour, we had 5 more cases. By morning, he shook his head. By morning, half the hospital staff was infected. "What are we dealing with?" I asked. Though I'd already seen enough to have some idea, the sheriff met my eyes. "You ever see those zombie movies? It's like that, but worse, faster, more aggressive. No shuffling corpses here, these things move. And the transformation, it happens quick. Minutes, not hours." I'd thought he was exaggerating until 1600 hours, when we got our first exposure case. A teenage boy helping his grandmother into the gym. He seemed fine during initial screening, no visible bites, normal temperature. Then he collapsed midway through processing, convulsing on the polished floor. Sullivan rushed to help, but I held her back. Something about the way the boy's limbs twisted, the guttural sounds coming from his throat. It wasn't a normal seizure. 45 seconds later, the boy stopped convulsing and lay still. The grandmother wept, trying to reach him, but Rhodes held her back. Then the boy's eyes snapped open, clouded. He lunged at Rhodes with inhuman speed, teeth bared. I fired twice. The boy dropped. The gymnasium erupted in screams. That was our introduction to the infected. By 1800 hours, we had established protocols. Every entrance barricaded. Armed guards at all checkpoints. Mandatory separation of families upon arrival for individual screening. The gymnasium now housed 300 survivors, with more arriving every hour. That's when Morrison found us. Caleb Morrison, assistant technical supervisor at the nuclear plant. He'd been hiding in a maintenance closet since the outbreak reached the facility that morning. "The reactor," he gasped, his face ashen. "It's running on automated systems, but the cooling pumps need manual adjustment every 12 hours. If someone doesn't reset the sequence by..." He checked his watch. 300 hours, the core temperature will exceed safety parameters. "Can't it just shut down automatically?" I asked. Morrison shook his head. "The emergency shutdown system is offline. We were conducting scheduled maintenance when the outbreak hit. The system needs to be manually reactivated before standard shutdown procedures can begin." I reported to Colonel Maxwell Ward, who reported up the chain. The response came swiftly. A team would be assembled to secure the reactor. The alternative, a nuclear meltdown, would turn a regional crisis into a national catastrophe. The colonel looked at me. "Frost, your team's got the most experience with the infected. You'll take Morrison to the facility." It wasn't a request. At 21:10 hours, the Humvee's headlights illuminated the main gate as we approached. The infected there turned toward us, drawn by the light and sound of our engines. Stone didn't slow down. "Brace!" he shouted, then rammed the lead Humvee through the gate. The impact threw me against my restraints as infected bodies thumped against the reinforced bumper, some going under the wheels with sickening crunches. As we breached the perimeter, I keyed my radio. "Command, this is Containment Team Alpha. We've reached the facility and are proceeding to the main building. Over." Colonel Ward's voice came back, distorted by static from the storm. "Copy that, Alpha. Be advised, we're seeing increased activity at the school perimeter. Security teams are responding, but our resources are stretched thin. Complete your mission ASAP. Over." "Understood, Command. Alpha out." I turned to Morrison, who was staring wide-eyed at the approaching reactor building. "How are you holding up?" His laugh was brittle. "I worked here for 7 years. Never thought I'd be coming back to save it from meltdown during a zombie apocalypse. We're going to get this done," I assured him, though my certainty felt hollow. The storm was worsening, the infected were increasing in number, and now we had reports of pressure on the school perimeter. The safety of 300 civilians rested on our ability to secure this facility and return to reinforce the containment zone. As our vehicles pulled up to the main entrance, lightning flashed again, illuminating dozens of infected stumbling across the parking lot toward us. Some wore the tattered remains of security uniforms, others the white lab coats of technicians. All bore the unmistakable signs of infection, that vacant stare, the blood-smeared mouths, the inhuman aggression. "There's more of them than I expected," Morrison whispered, his face pale in the dim light of the vehicle. I chambered around in my M4. "Doesn't matter. We've got a job to do." The rain continued to beat against the Humvee as I prepared to exit. Beyond these doors lay our objective, and hours of fighting through the infected to reach it. Behind us, 300 survivors waited in a school gymnasium, trusting us to return before the infected outside broke through. I checked my watch again. 3 hours until meltdown. The storm intensified, thunder cracking overhead like the world itself was breaking apart. Time was running out. The main entrance to Oakdale Nuclear Power Plant was a shattered monument to the chaos that had unfolded hours earlier. Glass doors hung from their hinges, shards crunching under our boots as we moved into the darkened lobby. The emergency lighting cast everything in a sickly red glow, throwing distorted shadows across blood-spattered walls. "Morrison, talk to me," I said, my voice low as I scanned the reception area. "What's our route to the control room?" Morrison's breathing was rapid and shallow as he oriented himself. "Third floor, east wing. We need to take the main stairwell. Elevators won't be operational in emergency mode." I nodded to Rhodes, who moved forward to secure our path, his tactical light cutting through the darkness. Sullivan followed close behind, her medical kit secured to her belt. Foster maintained our comm link while Shaw checked her tablet, downloading the building schematics Morrison had helped her access. "Moving out," I ordered. "Standard formation. Check corners, watch the ceiling. These things can be anywhere." The lobby opened into a wide corridor lined with offices. Papers littered the floor, abandoned in the panic. A trail of bloody footprints led down the hallway. Some human, others smeared into unrecognizable patterns where the infected had shambled through the carnage. "Single infected started it all," Morrison explained, voice trembling. "Morning shift change. Within minutes, he turned in the cafeteria. Bit 3 people before security responded. By the time the alarms sounded," he trailed off. The implication clear. The stairwell door was marked with a handprint in dried blood. Rhodes approached first, testing the handle before nodding to me. We breached the door and began our climb, covering all angles as we ascended. "Movement," Rhodes whispered. "Third floor, single contact." Through the scope of my rifle, I could see a figure shambling across the landing, dragging one leg behind it. The infected wore the remains of a security uniform, its utility belt still hanging from its waist. I took the shot, the suppressed round punching through the security guard's forehead, dropping him instantly. We waited, listening for any response to the noise. Nothing but the steady drumming of rain against the building's exterior. The third floor was a maze of administrative offices and technical rooms. Morrison guided us east, down a corridor that showed signs of desperate struggle. Bullet holes peppered the walls, shell casings scattered across the floor. "Control rooms through that security checkpoint," Morrison said, pointing to a reinforced door at the corridor's end. "Requires keycard access and biometric confirmation." Rhodes moved ahead, checking the security station. "Clear, but looks like there was one hell of a fight here." Blood pooled around the desk where a security officer had made his final stand. The officer himself was slumped against the far wall, half his face missing. Morrison approached the security panel, hands shaking as he swiped his badge. The panel beeped, a small light turning yellow. "Needs fingerprint now," he muttered, pressing his thumb against the scanner. A tense moment passed before the light turned green and the heavy door clicked open. The control room beyond was a technological cathedral. Banks of monitors, control panels, and workstations arranged in concentric circles around a central command area. Emergency lighting bathed everything in that same eerie red glow, status indicators blinking on various consoles. Morrison hurried to the main terminal, fingers flying across the keyboard. "Reactors running hot, 89% of maximum safe temperature. Cooling system is operating at minimal capacity." His face paled as he read the displays. "We've got less time than I thought. Core containment pressure is building faster than the automated systems can compensate." "How long?" Stone demanded. 2 hours, maybe less." I checked my watch. 21 to 40 hours. Our timeline had just compressed dramatically. "Foster, establish a secure comm link with command," I ordered. "Update them on our situation." Foster adjusted his equipment, frowning. "Signal's weaker in here. All this concrete and steel, I'll boost it as much as I can." after a few minutes of work. He managed to connect. "Lieutenant Frost, I've got Colonel Ward on the comm." I took the radio. "Command, this is Alpha Team. We've reached the control room and are initiating shutdown procedures. Be advised, situation is more critical than anticipated. New estimate for potential meltdown is approximately 2 hours. Over." The response came through, broken by static. "Alpha Team, situation at containment zone. Deteriorating rapidly. Infected have breached outer perimeter. Casualties. Mounting." My stomach dropped. "Command, say again. What's the status of the school? Over." "Holding the gymnasium. Safe zone compromised. Requesting immediate, if possible." The transmission cut out entirely, leaving only static hissing through the speaker. "Foster?" I turned to him. He shook his head, adjusting frequencies. "Storm's intensifying. Signal's gone, sir." I processed this silently, weighing our options. The school was under attack, possibly already breached, but leaving now with the reactor still unstable would condemn not just Oakdale but potentially half the state to radiation poisoning. "We complete the mission," I said firmly. "Morrison, how long do you need?" 40 minutes minimum. The systems are more damaged than I thought." "You've got 30, I replied. As if punctuating my words, a loud bang echoed from somewhere in the building, followed by the sound of breaking glass. "We've got company," Rhodes announced, moving to the door with his rifle raised. I joined him, peering through the small security window. In the dim emergency lighting, I could see shadows moving, shambling toward our position. "At least a dozen, maybe more," I reported. "Must have been drawn by our entry." The infected reached the security checkpoint outside, crowding against the reinforced glass. Their faces were a nightmare gallery of contorted features, jaws hanging at unnatural angles, eyes milky and vacant, skin slick with blood and gore. Some wore lab coats, others maintenance uniforms. The door shuddered as multiple infected slammed against it simultaneously. The metal frame groaned under the impact. "Morrison, work faster," I ordered, moving to help Rhodes barricade the entrance. We dragged a heavy desk across the floor, wedging it against the door. More impacts rattled the door, each one slightly warping the frame. Through the small window, I could see more infected joining the group outside. "I need access to the primary cooling controls," Morrison called out, his voice rising with panic. "But the system is locked out. Someone initiated the emergency protocols before evacuating." Shaw joined him at the console. "What about a manual override?" "Possible, but I need to access the server room on the first floor." My heart sank. Going back through the building now, with infected flooding the corridors, would be a suicide mission. "Alternatives?" I demanded. Morrison's fingers flew across the keyboard. "I'm trying to bypass the security lockouts, but it's taking time. If I can't get in remotely, one of us will have to go to the reactor control area directly. There's a manual override station there." "Where exactly?" "Adjacent to the reactor dome. There's a secure monitoring station with physical controls that can't be locked out. But it means going outside, crossing to the reactor building in the storm." Before I could respond, the door buckled inward slightly, the metal groaning under the relentless assault from outside. "That door's not going to hold much longer," Stone warned. I made a quick decision. "Morrison, you've got 15 minutes to crack that system remotely. After that, we go with the manual option." The next 10 minutes passed in tense silence, broken only by the constant thudding against the door and Morrison's frantic typing. The barricade held, but barely. The door was beginning to warp, small gaps appearing around its frame. "Lieutenant," Morrison finally called, defeat in his voice. "It's no good. The system's locked down completely. We need to access the manual override." I nodded grimly. "Stone, you're with me. Sullivan, Shaw, Foster, you stay here and protect Morrison. Keep working on the remote access in case we fail." "There's a maintenance access that leads to an exterior walkway," Morrison explained, pointing to a small door at the back of the control room. "Follow it east across the connecting bridge to the reactor building. The manual override station is on level 2, clearly marked." "What exactly are we looking for once we're there?" I asked. A red panel labeled Emergency Core Cooling System. Inside are 3 manual valves and a control lever. Turn the valves counterclockwise in sequence, they're numbered. Then pull the lever down. That should restore cooling to the reactor core and give me access to initiate the shutdown from here. I committed the instructions to memory. If we're not back in 20 minutes, assume we failed. Get Morrison out and head back to the school. That's an order. Stone and I checked our weapons one final time, then headed through the maintenance access. The moment we pushed the exterior door open, the storm hit us with full force, wind driving the rain sideways, soaking us instantly. Lightning flashed continuously, illuminating the metal walkway that extended ahead of us. We moved carefully along the exposed path, the metal grating slick beneath our boots. Below, infected wandered in the open area between buildings, their faces turned upward as if sensing our presence. Halfway across, disaster struck. A lightning bolt hit nearby and the walkway shuddered violently. A section ahead of us tore away from its moorings, twisting downward. "Jump!" I yelled, leaping across the widening gap. Stone followed, barely making it across before the section we'd been standing on collapsed completely, crashing to the ground below. The noise attracted the infected immediately. They converged on the fallen debris, then began looking up, spotting us on the remaining walkway. "Move," I ordered, pushing forward toward the reactor building entrance. Inside, the reactor building was eerily quiet. The space was industrial and utilitarian, massive pipes, pressure gauges, and control panels lining the walls. The air felt warmer, humming with the energy of the core buried deep within the structure. We ascended quickly to level 2, which opened into a circular walkway surrounding the central reactor housing. Stone spotted the red panel on the far wall, marked exactly as Morrison had described. As we approached, I noticed a body slumped against the panel, wearing a radiation suit with the helmet visor shattered. The man had obviously taken his own life rather than face what was happening outside. Stone dragged the body aside, exposing the emergency controls. I opened the panel to reveal the 3 manual valves and a large red lever. "Starting sequence," I announced, turning the valves counterclockwise one by one, each requiring significant strength. Then I gripped the red lever and pulled it downward, feeling resistance until it locked into place with a solid thunk. Immediately, the building hummed to life around us. Lights flickered on, replacing the emergency red glow with normal illumination. Nearby displays showed status indicators shifting from red to yellow. "Morrison, control station activated," I radioed. "Are you getting response?" "Confirmed. Cooling systems coming online. Core temperature dropping. But the infected outside the control room, they've nearly broken through." "Hold position," I ordered. "We're on our way." As we headed back toward the stairwell, we heard the unmistakable moans of infected from below. They had entered the reactor building through a broken exterior door. Stone spotted a maintenance elevator with independent emergency power. We boarded quickly, the doors closing just as infected rounded the corner toward us. The elevator deposited us on the ground floor, but our path back to the administrative building was blocked by infected. We were forced to exit through an emergency door and circle around outside. The storm had intensified, reducing visibility drastically. We sprinted across the open ground toward the administrative building, infected in pursuit. Inside, we found the third-floor corridor filled with infected converged on the control room entrance. Stone deployed a flashbang, and we charged through the disoriented crowd. The scene inside was chaos. The barricade had partially collapsed, allowing infected to squeeze through. Rhodes was fighting them back with Sullivan providing cover fire. Foster was down, wounded. "Foster's been bitten," Sullivan reported grimly. "Shutdown complete," Morrison confirmed from his console. "Reactors stable." I made a quick decision. "We're moving out, Foster." I looked at our communications specialist, his features already showing the first signs of infection. "Leave me," Foster insisted. "You know what happens next." I handed him my backup pistol, a silent understanding passing between us. "It's been an honor, Foster." "Go," he replied, gripping the weapon. "Get back to the school." We forced our way out, fighting through the diminishing crowd of infected. As we reached the stairwell, a single gunshot echoed from the control room behind us. The journey down to the lobby was a blur of violence and desperate movement. By the time we reached the ground floor, we were down to our last magazines. "Vehicles are just outside," I reminded everyone. "Sprint to the lead Humvee, don't stop for anything." We burst through the main entrance into the raging storm. The parking lot was filled with infected now, drawn by the alarms and activity. Rhodes reached the Humvee first, starting the engine as the rest of us piled in. The vehicle plowed through the infected, crashing through the main gate and onto the access road. "Command, this is Alpha Team," I radioed through the static. "Reactor secured. We are en route to the containment zone. ETA 15 minutes. I checked my watch, 22:45 hours. The reactor was safe, but Foster was gone. And the school, our makeshift fortress housing 300 survivors, was under attack. Morrison sat silently beside me, staring at his tablet showing the stable reactor readouts. His expression reflected what we all felt. Saving the reactor might mean nothing if we were too late to save the people we'd left behind. The Humvee raced through the storm, headlights cutting through the rain as we headed back toward Oakdale Elementary School, back toward whatever remained of our containment zone. The road back to Oakdale Elementary School was a nightmare of obstacles and split-second decisions. Rhodes navigated the Humvee expertly, weaving between abandoned vehicles. Through the streaked windshield, I caught a glimpse of something that made my blood run cold. The dark sky above the school glowed orange with fire. "Oh God," Sullivan whispered from the back seat. As we approached, my worst fears were confirmed. The outer perimeter had been breached in multiple locations. The playground was overrun with infected. Flames licked up the side of the gymnasium where we'd housed the survivors. "Perimeter's compromised," I said. "Rhodes, take us to the north entrance. Looks less overrun from here." The north entrance doors had been fortified hours earlier. Now they hung partially open, one door torn from its hinges. "Plan?" Stone asked, chambering around in his shotgun. "Direct approach. Rhodes, Shaw, protect Morrison. Stone, Sullivan, with me. We move straight to the gymnasium, locate survivors, and establish an extraction route." Outside, the storm enveloped us, rain pounding against metal, wind howling between buildings, and underneath it all, the moans of the infected. With each lightning flash, I could see dozens of them shambling across the grounds. 2 infected blocked our path. Stone's shotgun boomed once, dropping them both. Inside, the school hallway was a scene from hell. Emergency lights cast sickly shadows across walls smeared with blood. The security checkpoint we'd established was demolished. Sullivan found a wounded woman beneath an overturned desk, Monica Weiss, a nurse from the local clinic. "They came all at once," she managed, trembling. "Colonel Ward ordered everyone into the gymnasium. They were still fighting when I got separated." "How many survivors?" Stone pressed. "Maybe 200, I don't know. It happened so fast." "Sullivan, get her back to the Humvee. Stone, with me." As we approached the gymnasium, we heard gunfire and shouting. The doors were barricaded from within. I pounded on them. "This is Lieutenant Frost. Open up." After verification, the door opened just enough for us to squeeze through. Inside, the gymnasium had been transformed into a battleground. The survivors, about 150, far fewer than the 300 we'd left, had built concentric rings of defenses. Colonel Ward stood at the center, directing the defense. "Lieutenant, never thought I'd see you again." He led us to a makeshift command post. "Situation's critical. We're holding here, but ammunition is nearly depleted." "The reactor's secure," I reported. "We have transport outside, 1 Humvee. Won't take everyone." Ward nodded grimly. "We've got 3 military transport trucks in the south parking lot, but the lot is overrun." I studied our surroundings. The gymnasium had 2 main exits, the one we'd entered through, and emergency doors leading to the parking lot. "Sir," a soldier called. "They're breaking through the west corridor." Ward turned back to me. "We need options, Lieutenant, now." After checking our ammunition, only 50 rounds total, I spotted the overhead walkway connecting the gymnasium to the school's 2nd floor. "We don't go through the infected, we go over," I said. "That walkway, does it connect to any rooms overlooking the parking lot?" Ward nodded. Science classrooms, windows large enough for people to climb through. We need rope to get people down from the windows to the trucks. Fire hoses, Stone suggested. Every floor has them, strong enough to hold weight. I outlined the plan. Create a diversion to draw away infected. Evacuate everyone through the walkway to the science classrooms, then down to the transport trucks using fire hoses as ropes. I'll handle the diversion, Stone volunteered. And I'll secure the trucks, I added. Ward, you coordinate the evacuation. We spent 15 minutes gathering supplies. Sullivan and Rhodes joined us, having brought Morrison safely inside. Rhodes would help Stone with the diversion, while Sullivan assisted with evacuation. I climbed to the overhead walkway, then sprinted to the science classrooms. Through the windows, I could see the parking lot below. At least 50 infected wandered between vehicles. The transport truck sat along the far fence. Frost, we're in position, Stone reported. I checked my watch. 2,330 hours. Almost midnight. 12 hours since we'd been deployed. Execute diversion, I ordered. Seconds later, explosions echoed from the opposite side of the building. The infected reacted immediately, their heads swiveling toward the noise and light. Most began shambling in that direction. I secured a fire hose to a lab table, then rappelled down to the parking lot. Moving in a crouch, I navigated between abandoned cars toward the first transport truck. As I opened the door, an infected slammed into me from behind. Its teeth snapped inches from my face. I struggled, pinned between metal and relentless undead fury. In desperation, I drove my head forward, smashing my helmet into its face. I got my forearm under its chin, creating just enough space to reach my sidearm. One shot, point blank to the temple. The infected collapsed. I scrambled into the truck, started the engine, and drove it beneath the science classroom windows. After securing all 3 trucks, I radioed Ward. Start sending people down now, Shaw directed the first evacuees. A rope of tied fire hoses dangled down to the truck's roof. Sullivan helped people descend one after another. Ward's voice came through my radio. Diversion team requesting extraction. They're pinned down in the northeastern corner. I found Stone and Rhodes surrounded by infected, having taken position on top of a dumpster. They were almost out of ammunition. I laid on the horn, drawing the infected's attention. Jump, I shouted. Rhodes leapt first, landing on the Humvee's roof. Stone followed, but an infected grabbed his leg. He tumbled to the ground. Stone scrambled to his feet as Rhodes reached down from the roof. Their fingers met just as the horde closed in. With supernatural strength, Rhodes hauled Stone upward, his boots clearing the grasping hands by inches. We returned to find the evacuation nearly complete. Suddenly, Ward's voice came through the radio, urgent. Gymnasium breached. We're falling back to the walkway now. Ward, double time, I shouted. You've got maybe 1 minute before your exit is cut off. People began emerging from the windows more rapidly, sliding down the fire hoses with reckless speed. Last civilian clear, Ward reported. Shaw and I are coming down. Shaw went first, making it safely. Ward appeared at the window, infected visible behind him. He began his descent, but halfway down, an infected at the window dislodged the anchor point. The hose came free. Ward fell, hitting the truck roof with a sickening thud. He was alive but badly injured. His leg bent at an unnatural angle. Get him in the truck, I ordered. We're leaving now. I took the wheel of the lead truck, Ward beside me. All vehicles prepare to move out. Our destination is Fort Hamilton. The parking lot was filling with infected again. I floored the accelerator. The heavy transport surged forward, plowing through the gathered infected. The other 2 trucks followed, forming a convoy of survivors. We crashed through the parking lot gate and onto the main road. In my rearview mirror, I could see the elementary school burning, flames engulfing most of the structure. Reactor status? I asked Ward, who had Morrison's backup tablet. Stable. Cooling systems functioning normally. He looked up at me. You did it, Frost. You saved millions of lives. But at what cost? 300 civilians under our protection, now reduced to less than half that number. Foster gone. Dozens of military personnel lost. The infection, Ward said softly. It can't have been contained to just our area, not with how fast it spread. I nodded grimly. which means this is happening everywhere. As dawn broke, we approached Fort Hamilton. Their response to our radio call was clear. Gate 3 is open and secure. Medical team standing by. Ward stirred beside me. You know what the worst part is? We did everything right. By the book. And still we lost. I finished for him. But not everything. We got these people out. We prevented a nuclear disaster. That counts for something. The gates of Fort Hamilton swung open before us. Temporary safety, perhaps, but in a world transformed by infection, even moments of security were precious. I am Lieutenant Deacon Frost, Special Containment Division. 12 hours ago, I was deployed to contain an outbreak in a small town. Now I've witnessed the beginning of the end of civilization. We saved the reactor but lost almost everyone else, and this is just the first day.